Welcome to the video lecture series, Culture, Worldview, and Origins. We're Tim and Holly Nyquist. We're in number 4, series number 4, lecture number 4 in a series of 10 lectures on constructing my personal philosophical or worldview system. And as I've mentioned before in the other series, is that it is very important to have a system in place so that we can understand different ideas that come at us as to what ideas we can accept and what ideas we should not accept. Because what I have found is that just a lot of ideas are coming into the church and into seminaries and into Christian thought that do not really reflect what Christ thought and how Christ believed and how he walked. So this is, I believe, it was a very important step for me because I was interested in different models of origins, but I had no idea how to discern them, how to separate them, how to understand where each model was coming from. But then I understood that through the 4 factors of Stephen Jay Gould, the theory, habit, prejudice, and culture, that each model represents a different standpoint, a different belief system. And if you can get to the belief system of the model, then you'll understand whether or not you can embrace or accept that model or not. So that is the purpose of this series, is to show you my process of going step by step of putting together my personal belief system. Here's the house. Again, we started with culture and how culture influences my choice of epistemology, my source of reliable knowledge. What is my source? And my personal source that was chosen was external authority, which I chose it to be the Hebrew God of the Bible, the scriptures, and that he is knowable and revealed through special and general revelation. Then we went from the source, which is a prejudice, we went up to metaphysics, and we're in metaphysics. And metaphysics is establishing our basic beliefs. And those basic beliefs are going to control the rest of the thought processes. And so what about metaphysics? What is metaphysics all about? Metaphysics has 3 sub-branches. It has theology, ontology, and universal science. And you answer those questions. And how do you answer them, and with what answers? Those should come from your source of reliable knowledge that is in the foundation of your house. Question number 1, we're building it. Does God exist? Theology. You answer yes or no. I answer yes. And I answer as a theistic God, as theism, a God that is in the system. Now there's others that believe God exists, but he is outside the system and inaccessible. It used to be called deism, but I've seen now that some authors don't like to be separated off theists, so they call it broad theism, which is very similar to deism. But theology, does God exist or not? So we have to answer that. That was the first part of metaphysics. I answered with a yes. And he is knowable. Second question, ontology. What is real? And this is where you might have some question. You haven't heard of the term, and you didn't know that that was a debate or that was something that we had to decide. And well, as part of metaphysics, it's ontology. What is real? Philosophers can be divided up into 2 basic groups. Those that are realists versus those that are idealists. Okay, so where is reality? Where does it start? For a realist, reality is out there. It's an object. It really exists, whether I think about it or not. An idealist says, no, reality is in the mind of the person. And the person is only receiving perceptions of what's out there. And it's like a projection, and it's like a movie. And we don't know if that's even real out there, but I do know that this is real in here. So idealism is a meaning that reality is in the mind. Realist is reality is outside the mind. So how does that affect things? Well, does that matter? Yes, it does. I'm in education. And so idealism has been running educational models in certain areas for the last number of years, and one of their they're models. Okay, we're talking about models. Based on idealism is constructivism. Constructivism means that there is no knowledge really outside of the person. The person is free and should construct his own knowledge. And so the teacher is thus just a guide by the side, because there is nothing to really learn externally. It's all internal and constructed by the individual student. So that is how it can affect different models. I would not be in agreement with that model, because as following the Hebrew model, there does exist knowledge outside of me, and it was revealed through God. So in other words, I would be a realist, and that there really does exist a God, and there really does exist knowledge external to me that I need to learn and I need to be obedient to. And so this is where we can get into a little bit of trouble, in that we are adopting different models that don't correspond to what we really believe. And so this is the importance of putting together a system, a personal philosophy, so that you can discern between ideas in the marketplace or in the classroom and say, wait a minute, no, that's not where I'm at. That's not the way I believe to go. So here's realists versus idealists. What are you? Where do you fit in? Well, to tell you the truth, I am not a radical realist, and I'm not a radical idealist, and that's where a lot of people would fall, is somewhere in between. So what am I? What is my metaphysics? What is my ontology? Well, I am a realist, but I am what is called a critical realist. Okay, what does that mean? What that means is that I do believe that there is real knowledge. I do believe there is a real world. I do believe there are real objects. I do believe there's a real God. I do believe there are real places. I do believe in heaven. I do believe in earth, and I believe in hell. I do believe that God is a rewarder and God also punishes. So I believe in reality, in a real external reality, but I'm critical of that. What's that mean? I just criticize things? Well, sometimes that too. But a critical realist means that they recognize that they or I do not have direct access to that world that's out there. I only have access to it through my perceptions of it. And those perceptions are influenced by theory, habit, prejudice, and culture. Okay, so that makes me a critical realist. I am a realist, knowing believing that there is an outside world that does exist outside of my mind, my thinking of it, my believing of it, but I don't have direct contact with that world. I have perceptions of it, and my perceptions are colored by theory, habit, prejudice, and culture. So I am a critical realist. Genesis 1:1 still guides me, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Did God create a real heavens and a real earth? Yes. Yes, he did. Why? Why do I believe that? Because that's what the Hebrew mindset was. The Hebrew mindset were the Hebrews were realists. They believed in a literal heaven, earth, and in the God that created them. Now, there's entering the Christian church thoughts that what we used to sing about, heaven is a wonderful place. There's many now that say that doesn't even exist. I was singing those songs in primary grade, but yet now I've learned heaven is not real. Earth, don't know. Hell, obviously not. Not real. Awards, rewards, not real. Punishment, really not real. Okay? So this is what is entering in. Was that the Hebrew conception? No, that's a Western, and it's not idealism, and it's not realism. But what it is it's a rejection of some tenets of realism. And so they call themselves anti-realists. And so they are not for idealism, but they're anti-realism. And what they mean by that is they're anti some of the beliefs of the realists that formed the early church. There are a number today of people that are teaching in the seminaries that are anti-realists. And it's kind of like, okay, why do you do that? Well, one of them, his testimony is, my choice of anti-realism is motivated by theology. Okay, remember theology was the number one part of metaphysics? What is your theology? Well, his ontology, what is real, gave him permission to change things about theology. What did he change? I don't know. A lot of people aren't clear exactly. They will admit they are an anti-realist, but then they aren't clear about what they are anti-about. So that is something I would say, be careful in that. If you are trusting a professor, make sure that that professor reflects your values and what you believe to be true. And that is backing it up. Just if I am calling myself a believer, a Christian, and I'm going by biblical parameters, then I must assume a non-Western standpoint, a Hebrew standpoint of what is real and what is not. And so that is what defines the second point of ontology. What is real? What was real to the Hebrews? And that's what I need to assume so that my theology reflects what is real and what I believe is real. So that's just back to it. The Hebrews were realists. They believe in a literal heaven, earth, and in the God that created them. The Hebrews were a non-Western cultural tendency. They believed what they experienced. So now, we've gone through, you got to pick your prejudice of your source of reliable knowledge. What's your source? Now we've gone to metaphysics. Metaphysics, number one, theology. What is your theology? And you've got to define that. But where do you get that information from? From your source, reliable knowledge. Then you go down to ontology. What is real? You choose. Are you an idealist? Are you a realist? Are you extreme idealist, extreme realist, or are you somewhere in between? Are you a critical realist? Are you an anti-realist? Are you... And there's probably the same you could say for idealism. There's probably a critical idealist, and there's probably an anti-idealist. So there's probably 6 different positions that one can take to. But what I would say is be careful, because each position reflects a belief system, reflects a tendency, a cultural tendency. What would be the cultural tendency of the Hebrew culture? That is the tendency that we should adopt to be able to understand and correctly know reliable knowledge extracted from the Hebrew Scriptures. Thanks again for accompanying me. We're on number 4. We're going to 5 is next. And we're going to 10. So thanks again. We're Tim and Holly Nyquist, and I hope you tune in to the next one as we finish up on metaphysics with the next stage, science. Thank you.